Welcome, Professor Rivers.
Good to be here.
Professor Rivers, what do we know today about how students learn effectively that we didn't know a generation or two ago?
Well, I think we know a great deal about the nature of learners and the organization of the learning environment that would make students successful. We have a lot of research about the impact of personal style on learning, cognitive style, organizational style, personality, needs for learning. There's been a lot of research in that area, so we know a lot about that. We've also done brain-based research that tells us how students learn, how different kinds of students learn, and who uses what part of their brain in that learning process. We've extensively studied the instructional organizational process, the organization of instruction. We know a lot about what you have to do to organize instruction so that it can facilitate learning. We know a lot about that. We've also done a lot of research on student-oriented learning, where the student is the center of the learning process, and you focus on the student for constructing knowledge and constructing understanding and facilitating that process. The problem is we know a lot about learning. We know a lot about how to organize for learning, but we have not translated that into wide-scale practice in the educational community. It takes about 30 to 35 years for research to make its way into the K-12 classroom, and that is what, in our society at least, has been the norm, and it is really unacceptable.
How would you describe the state of the American educational system?
Well, I think it's struggling, and it's struggling primarily on the secondary level. There's been a great deal of reform in both instructional organization and techniques and curriculum organization at the elementary school level, especially in the area of literacy. The problem is that when you look at the scores in English language arts, science, mathematics, and social studies, they're the highest comparably at the elementary school level. When you compare us with other developed nations in the world, our elementary students stack up fairly well. The problem is that the scores significantly decline at the middle school level and take a real nosedive at the secondary or high school level. That's where our problem really lies. We have not changed the high school in over 50 years. After at least 4 major studies of the high school, we haven't really made much progress in reorganizing the high school along research-based lines, nor reorganizing the high school curriculum along those lines.
So how can a school system work for students who learn and succeed at a wide range of levels?
Well, we do face that in our country. We have students that bring widely diverse experiences and have differences in their ability to learn, and they bring that all to the classroom. Obviously, I think we're doing a fairly decent job at the elementary school level, but again, as students move into higher levels, we're having problems. I think the way to do that is to make sure that you have high expectations for all students, and you temper those expectations with the scaffolding that the students need in order to be successful at their level of ability. So the real issue is scaffolding the instructional process so that it provides the support students need in order to be successful. And as you know, sometimes that scaffolding has to occur outside of the classroom, or else it overwhelms or overpowers what goes on inside the classroom. Also, the school and district must be organized around the developmental needs of students. And unless that happens, then you have a train that leaves the station and there's nobody aboard. So you've got to accept students where they are and move them forward from there. And that's a tough thing to do. So the bottom line is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. It is differentiated instruction for the needs of different students. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's essential in today's world.
So Professor Rivers, given all that you've said, in your opinion, what makes an effective 21st century educational system?
Well, I've identified, in thinking about this, I've identified about 7 or 8 things that I think are absolutely crucial to creating that kind of a effective system. First, as I indicated earlier, the system must be totally focused on the developmental needs of the students. That is, it should be organized around their intellectual, emotional, and social needs. You don't provide instruction on a timetable, but based on what the student needs at that particular time, in that particular point in the learning process. It all boils down to this: what is learned is more important than when it is learned. Right now, when you learn things is important. In a high-quality system, it's not when, but what the outcome is and how you can get students to that outcome. So that's the first thing. Second thing I also alluded to earlier, and that is a school district and a school system and a school needs to have high expectations for all students. But they have to temper that with realistic design experiences for students at all levels, as I indicated earlier. That's an important characteristic. Thirdly, a system that engages the community and its stakeholders in both the design of instruction and the delivery of the instruction is extremely important. Those stakeholders have a lot of keys to the learning of those students, and unless you engage them, you can't open a lot of doors, and that's absolutely essential. Fourthly, a system that focuses on diversity in students, in faculty, in curriculum, creates a rich learning environment for all students to learn. Diverse cultures, perspectives, and approaches enhance the educational experience for everyone. So you don't pay attention to diversity, you're not getting the richness that brings to the learning process. Fifthly, a system that connects learning to life, to the life of the student, and to his or her community or environment is absolutely essential. Issues and challenges that are the core of the curriculum need to flow from the experience the student has in the community. Learning goals and objectives should be related to the world that the student is in right now, not necessarily the world that you would like for the student to be in the future. Because if you work hard to get students to learn about the world they live in, you really prepare them to be lifelong learners in the world that is to be. Sixthly, a system that focuses on interdisciplinary projects and problems for students to solve, working in small groups. This is the way the workplace is organized, and this is the way schools should be organized. The curriculum should be made up of real-life projects for the most part, and specific skills and competencies that the students are deficient in should be taught separately but related to those projects, so that they can bring effective skills and conceptual learning to that process. Sixth, a system that promotes the development of a variety of workforce skills is very important. And those workforce skills are being pretty much ignored especially by our secondary schools at the present time. Those skills are things like working with others to complete assigned projects and tasks, the ability to define problems and propose solutions, and the ability to effectively communicate both verbally and in writing clear and compelling messages or ideas. Emphasis on inquiry development projects and lessons will promote such skills and dispositions. The workplace is full of opportunities to solve problems in unique ways. We're not really teaching students how to do that in our present educational system for the most part. Seventh, finally, a system that makes effective use of a technology-based learning environment that focuses on real-world or virtual real-world learning experiences is absolutely essential. Kids have all kinds of experiences with games and simulations in the world that they live in. We have pretty much ignored that in the formal learning environment. We need to take advantage of those skills that students bring to the learning environment by providing games, simulations, role-playing situations, technology-based platforms for learning that take advantage of those skills that students already bring to the classroom and engage them in the community in a way that excites excites them and gives them a vision of what work in that particular area will be like. It's really the ultimate career orientation. Those 7 characteristics, I think, really are things that we should be focusing on to improve and make our schools effective in preparing students for the next century.
Thank you, Professor Rivers.
Thanks.